In this video, I'm going to show you how to structure Google Ad campaigns the right way. Google Ad campaign structure is definitely something that advertisers struggle with. It's already been requested a whole bunch on my channel, so here we go. So I'm in an example Google Ad account here, and I'm going to go through the example campaign creation process and show you how to structure how many keywords in your ad groups, how many ads, how do you set that up, all that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and click on New Campaign and then New Campaign again. Then in terms of campaign objective, I'm going to go ahead and select leads. All this stuff, don't worry about it. There's warnings popping up all over the place. That's just because this is an example ad account, as I already mentioned. Things aren't set up as we usually would, but that doesn't matter. You don't need to worry about any of this for the purpose of this video and teaching you about Google Ad campaign structure. So let's go ahead and click continue. I'm going to select search as the type of campaign that we're after. Then where do we want these leads to take place? Most people are going to go with their website, a landing page. So we're going to go ahead and select website visits. And I'm just going to quickly pop in the URL of my website in there. And then let's call this campaign example lead campaign. I've got a capital X in there, so let's sort that out. Okay, let's go ahead and click continue. In terms of bidding, what do you want to focus on? Conversions, absolutely fine to leave that as is. If you're wondering about all these settings that I'm sort of breezing past, I've either created videos on those or I will create videos on those. So you should be able to find that on my channel, or at least make sure you're subscribed so you can catch them as they come out in the future. But conversions is absolutely fine, often what we would go with in this scenario. I'm going to go ahead and click next. Then you can see that Google defaults to running these ads both on the search network and display network. To get started, I like to remove the display network. I don't think it's where beginners should be playing for the most part. And when it comes to structure, search network is more appropriate for what we're going to set up and what we're going to use and what I'm going to demonstrate. So this is often how I'd start anyway. Then we get down into locations. Obviously, the location you select is going to depend on the products or services you offer, where you can deliver them. I'm going to go ahead and select the United Kingdom. And the example I'm going to use to demonstrate this is my own business. So my own business is a digital advertising agency. We create, manage, and optimize campaigns for our clients in both Facebook ads and Google ads primarily. So I've selected the United Kingdom. That's where we're going to advertise this particular campaign. We could advertise worldwide. We have clients all over the world, lots in North America, for example. But I'm going to select UK for now, select the right one for you. The default language in here is English, absolutely fine. You may or may not need to change that depending on your business. Okay, let's go ahead and click next. Now we get to the first ad group here, and it's called ad group 1. I'm going to change that and call this digital advertising agency. And then we can see in terms of the keywords, a whole bunch of suggestions have been put in based on our URL that we entered earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and click and get rid of all of those. They're almost certainly not going to be relevant or not as specific as we want them to be. When it comes to ad groups, the more you can create and the more specific you can get, the better. I don't want you to go above, say, 6 keywords per ad group. Less is often a good way to go. It is more effort to set up a campaign with lots of different ad groups with very, very tight keyword groupings, but it allows you to create more specific ads, more specific landing pages, both of which I'm going to talk about later on. And that can really help improve performance. It can help improve conversion rates once someone clicks through to your website or landing page, and is worth doing if your Google Ads campaign, your Google Ads Ventures is going to be a big part of your marketing, how you acquire customers and things like that. So now we can start adding in our keywords. So let's start with digital advertising agency, digital ads agency. Obviously, some people search using the full word, some people search using the shortened variation. So you want to add both of those in. So we've added in those 6 keywords. Now, if you're familiar with keyword match types, you'll see that these have gone in right now as broad match keywords, and that is not something we want. We don't want to be that broad, particularly with a new campaign. That's something you want to add in later on. So I'm going to go ahead and make all of these phrase match keywords. That's going to provide more specific targeting and mean that our ads show for searches that are more closely related to the terms we've entered here. You go with broad match and you'll see that your ads appear for all sorts of searches that aren't really relevant and can end up wasting money and wasting budget, which is why I said it's not something I'd recommend for beginners. So I've made those phrase match. If you're not familiar with keywords, by the way, keyword match types, I've got a video all about keyword match types. You can go ahead and check that out. So I've entered all those in as phrase match, but I also want to duplicate them and enter them in as exact match as well. And the reason why we'd include both, because you might be thinking, well, what's the point? Surely phrase match includes exact match already. And you are right, that is true. But the reason why we enter in as exact match as well is because you can get scenarios where the exact match, which is more precise, delivers a great cost per lead, but the phrase match is actually slightly more expensive and potentially too expensive to continue advertising to. If you break them out like this, you can very easily see that information. You can go, you know what, the exact match of digital ads agency services produces a cost per lead of $13, that's great. The phrase match version of the same thing is a cost per lead of $18. That's more expensive, $15 is our cutoff. Therefore, we'll remove that. We won't continue advertising to that. So now what we'll see is that this is a very, very tight keyword grouping around the central theme, which is digital advertising agency. So we've actually only really got 3 keywords in here. We've got digital advertising agency UK, and digital advertising agency services. Obviously there are other versions in here, so we've got just the ads version, and whenever you've got variations of effectively the same word, you're going to have more keywords entered in, so you may end up with more than 6 because of that's absolutely fine. So that gets us to 6 because we've got the ads and advertising version of each because people use each to search, but then we've also got the phrase and exact match. So whilst there's 12 in there, really there's only 3 terms, if that makes sense, okay? So that's gonna be our first ad group, very specific around this, which is gonna allow us to create more specific ads, even ad extensions if you create those at the ad group level, and landing pages. Talk more about that in a minute. I want to cover the keywords and the ad group structure first before we get into ads and things like that. So I'm just going to skip over this ad section and just use whatever Google has defaulted based on the website. Don't worry about any of this. We are certainly going to be changing this stuff later on. I'm just going to click done for a second and go ahead and click next so we can get this done in order. Exactly the same with all the extensions. I'm just going to skip over this and get to this later on. It'll require that we enter in a budget. I'm going to have videos talking about budgets, so make sure you subscribe and keep an eye out for those because that's an important topic as well. Then we get to reviewing the campaign. And as you can see, there are errors popping up. As I said, this is an example ad account. We're going to scroll down, try and as much as we can to get this campaign published. Okay, so now we've got that set up, we can go ahead and set up the other ad groups, and I'll show you the keyword groupings that we might use. I've just paused the campaign, by the way, so that's why it says not eligible campaign pause, because I don't actually want this to go live, at least not yet. So let's go ahead and click on plus create ad group. Okay, for this second ad group, let's go ahead and call this digital marketing agency. And you see it's obviously closely related to digital advertising agency, but that's the sort of level of specificity that can help you get the best possible results, because often they're the same thing, but some people will use different terms to search. Some people do actually mean different things, because marketing could cover things like organic posting on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that, okay? But digital marketing agency. I'm just gonna pop in the URL on the website again, and then we're gonna go ahead and add in the various keywords. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add in the keyword match types to go with phrase match. And then we're going to duplicate out and do exact match. And you'll see, by the way, that Google will try and get you to use broad match. Not something I would recommend, as I've already mentioned. It's more of a thing that helps Google because it means they can put your ads in front of more searches. They can make more money from more different searches that people make. I don't think it's within your best interest. Okay, let's go ahead and click save and continue. And then once again, for now, I'm just going to skip through the ad stuff, click save and continue, and then we're good to go with that second ad group. So now we've got digital marketing agency, digital advertising agency. Let's go ahead and add in some more. So the next ad group I'm going to call Google Advertising Agency. Pop in our URL once more. I'll talk more about the URLs and how that might differ later on. You can see we've got a similar theme here, but obviously this is quite different now. We're going for more of a specific service that someone might be searching for that our business offers, which is Google Ads Agency done for you services. And that is different, of course, to just searching for a digital advertising agency. Now, a lot of people searching for digital advertising agency, even digital marketing agency, they might mean Google advertising agency. That might be actually what they're after, but you've got to think about this from your prospect's point of view, particularly in an industry where people don't necessarily understand it all that well, the people that might be buying it, which is certainly the case in the digital marketing space. A lot of our clients, they're business owners, they know they need this, but they don't really know how it works, what even the terms mean, the differences between, say, a digital agency that offers lots of different platforms they run ads on and a digital agency that doesn't, that just specializes in Facebook ads or Instagram ads or that sort of thing. So adding in the various options into different ad groups really is a good idea. So we've got the same setup as we did digital advertising agency, but obviously we factored in Google ads instead. And then again, we've got the same warning, save and continue, skip the ad stuff. And there we go. We've now got a third ad group in here. I'm going to go ahead and create another one. And then I'm going to tell you about, I'm not going to go through every single one, I'm going to tell you about some of the others that we would create. So I'm now going to create Google AdWords agency. Now, I'm sure a whole bunch of you watching this will be thinking, hang on, it's not called AdWords anymore. That's really old school. That's not something, that's not appropriate. Why would you do that? Again, I know that, you know that. When we're advertising this term, do the people that might be hiring our agency know that? A lot of them won't. A lot of them will still think it's called AdWords. They may have run campaigns 6-7 years ago when it was called AdWords and think, oh, okay, I'm going to do that again. It kind of worked before, but let's give it another go. Let's find a new agency. So you want to be thinking about this from your prospects, your potential customers' search behavior point of view. Okay, and then we would do the same thing, obviously with the phrase and exact match like we've done before. And broad match is something that you can test with these terms, particularly if you find that once you run this ad group, that one or a few of the keywords are performing really, really well at the phrase match level, and you think, we might be able to broaden this out and get really good results with this as well. That would be exactly where I'd start when you want to test broad match. But it is not something that I would recommend from the very beginning. When you're launching a new campaign, you want to prove that it can work with the more specific terms first before you broaden out, because your cost per lead or whatever it is you're optimizing for is almost certainly going to be more with the broader keyword match type options. Okay, so there we've got our Google AdWords agency ad set ad group in there. Click save and continue. And then we can once again skip through this ad section because we're going to be covering that stuff in a minute. Okay, so we've now got 4 ad groups in this campaign. We would not stop there. There are certainly other keywords and tight keyword groupings that we can use to create other ad groups. I'm not going to keep doing that again and again because it gets quite competitive, and I think you get the idea. But for example, we've already talked about Google ads. We have Facebook advertising services, so we would use a whole ad group for Facebook advertising agency. We would then have a whole other ad group for Instagram advertising agency, for Meta advertising agency, because that's obviously a new term and some people will be using those. Even within Google ads, we've focused more on the agency side of things. You could have ad groups for Google Ads services. So if we take a look at this ad group, for example, digital advertising agency, we've included keywords like digital ads agency services and digital advertising agency services. You could have a whole separate ad group that drops the agency. So you have digital ad services, digital advertising services, all that sort of stuff. So you really can get very specific. And as I said, I would recommend it. It would not be a bad idea for a business like us, for us to have 12, 15 different ad groups. You're rarely going to make a mistake by having too many. The only downside to doing so is the time it takes to get all that sort of stuff set up. Okay, but if we go back now to the ad group level, and what we now need to do is focus on adding in ads. So you've got your ad groups. There's no set number of ad groups you want. It's depending on what you offer, how much you can break that down. But I've already talked about the more specific, the better. Now, and then within the ad groups, in terms of keywords, 6 is a maximum usually, excluding the variations and things like that. And yeah, if you're finding you're trying to add in too many, if you're going over that mark, you can probably separate those out and break those out into separate ad groups, is typically how we would treat that. So let's go ahead and click into digital advertising agency, and then let's go to the ads section within this ad group. So let's go ahead and edit this ad and change some of the details from the default. We just went ahead with the default, whatever Google popped into our our campaign for us. Okay, so at the ad level, don't worry about the final URL. We'll look into that. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But let's come down first to the headline section. So we obviously want to delete out the options that have been given to us. It's not appropriate or what we want for what we're looking to advertise here. We want to be much more specific around the topic of our ad group and the keywords that we're using within that ad group. So we can see it's listed up here for us, which is helpful. So in terms of headline, let's go ahead and add in the really obvious, which is the topic of the actual ad group itself, digital advertising agency. That can certainly go into our ad as one of our headline options. And we can also add things that include some of our keywords, but a little bit different, because remember these headlines, because it's a responsive search ad, these headlines can be shown next to each other. So we couldn't just list out digital advertising agency and then digital ads agency and all that sort of stuff. It would potentially look weird if it was tested that way, but we could have something like UK-based digital ads team, or even include agency. That would look different enough so that if you had the two together, digital advertising agency followed by UK-based digital ads team, that wouldn't look too weird. And then of course you want to be adding in headlines to help sell the service. So we could have, something like specialist media buyers. That's a term, media buyers, that people do use when they're referring to people that run Google ads, Facebook ads, things like that. We could have short-term contracts. That's often a selling point that's associated. We could have ROI driven service in there. Okay, so I would usually recommend that you add in something like look at our results, if that's something that we can actually back up and demonstrate case studies and things like that from previous clients, which is something we have on our website. So here we've just added in 6 different options. I'd usually recommend you add in at least 6. And if you want more information on how to write great headlines and how all that works, I've got a video that'll be linked to in the video description showing exactly how to write Google Ads headlines, so check that out. But you want to add in a good amount so that Google can test the various options and they can see, okay, does these ones work best? Do this combination work best? That's what the big advantage of having a responsive search ad is. It is able to churn through this sort of stuff. So you want lots of options. You want to make sure that a good amount of these are specifically centered around the core theme of the ad group. And that's why we want this to be specific, because if, for example, we were using these headlines, and instead of it being centered around digital advertising agency, instead if we went for, say, social media marketing agency, if it doesn't work as well for Google ads, but let's take with the Facebook ads example, social media marketing agency, well, if it pops up with digital advertising agency in the headline of the ad and someone searched for social media marketing agency, but because it's all lumped into one ad group, are they going to click on that ad? Good chance that they won't. It's certainly going to have a lower click-through rate than one that is dead on what's being searched for. So lots of options, make sure they're very closely related to the theme, the core of the ad group, which in this case is digital advertising agency. Okay, and then we can scroll down to descriptions. So again, defaults have just been popped in here. Let's delete those out. You can add up to 4 options. I would really recommend that you do add 4 options if you can. So we could have something like book a free, no obligation call today to find out more, something like that. We could re-emphasize some of the things that are important to people. So specialist, UK-based advertising team, ad creative included for all our clients, CY hundreds of clients choose us every year. Those sorts of things. And again, I'm going to have more information on writing descriptions for Google Ads, because that's an important topic that can stand by itself and you can go through. So, but here we go. That's a decent start. We can add in the options. And again, because it's a responsive search ad, Google can test those various options. They can test them in conjunction with the headlines, which is always helpful. Okay, so then we get into extensions. I don't want you to do anything with URL just yet. We get into extensions, and you can add extensions. If we click on this, we can add them at the campaign level or the ad group level. What you want to do here really depends on your business and how many options there are. So for example, the top option is site link extensions. For a business like mine, we'd often just add in campaign level site link extensions simply because there just aren't that many site links. We don't have tons of pages on our website. So for example, we might have, if we were going to add in a site link extension, we might have one that is even for this, that would apply obviously to this ad group and other ad group. We could have something like Google Ads Agency or Google Ads Services is probably more appropriate for a site link extension. And then we can add in description lines. Again, I've actually got another video all about site link extensions, so check that out, and there'll be a link in the video description in case you're interested. I'm going to go through all the various details here, but obviously, you'd have your leadguru.co.uk / Google Ads. It's not actually a URL, but it would look something like that, and you add in descriptions most of the time. Okay, so would you want to create that at the ad group level? Depends, as I said, on your business. If you've got lots and lots of pages on your website and you've got different pages for different very specific things, then great, add it at the ad group level. Use different site link extensions for digital advertising agency versus Google advertising agency or Facebook advertising agency. You can get really specific, and that's fantastic. And if we minimize that down, again, with site link extensions, just to quickly mention, you would want to add in a whole bunch, at least 4. If you can add more, that's great. Not all businesses can, and that's also not a problem. Then when we get to call out extensions, basically the exact same advice applies. Is it appropriate? There's not necessarily links to your website, but are there differences in the benefits associated with that service as opposed to other services? So for example, we would often create call out extensions at the campaign level. And if I just add some in, you'll see why. Because if we're adding something like specialist UK-based team, that applies to both our Google Ads services and our Facebook Ads services. It applies to ad groups that are centered around digital advertising agency. But if that was only true for Facebook Ads, but not for Google Ads, then we would want to create this at the ad group level and then create different ones at the Google Ads level. For my business, they're pretty much going to apply throughout the services that we provide. So we could add that one in there, and again, we can add in various different options. So specialist UK-based team would be one. Then we can look into add other options as well, of course. So short-term contracts. Some of the stuff we added at the headline level, we're going to want to repeat here. Google will tell you shouldn't repeat cross stuff, headlines and extensions, things like that. I'm not sure that's actually the best advice because they don't always appear. And what if you just don't have that many benefits associated with your product or service? Like what if your product or service is designed to save people money and that's kind of the whole gig? Well, you want to reiterate that in various places. You don't want to sort of fabricate or come up with things that aren't as appropriate, etc., etc. So that's absolutely fine to add some in. Again, I'm gonna have videos. I haven't done one yet, but I will have videos on call out extensions specifically. You want to add in a bunch of different options to allow Google to test and allow you to get the best results possible. We go ahead and click save there. And then I'm going to minimize this down. Call extensions, depending on your business, you may or may not want to add your phone number. And of course you can do that at the campaign or ad group level. That is fairly self-explanatory. There are more extension options. Those are the main ones, and they're sort of added in specifically under here because they're the most important. For now, it's much more important, I think, that you get the structure right at the ad group level, keyword level, ad level, etc. And then you can worry about other extensions and stuff like that later on. That's absolutely fine. So we're gonna go ahead and click Save Ad. Now in this ad group, this digital advertising agency ad group, we right now just have the one ad. Now, of course, it's a responsive search ad, which means there's lots of different headline variations, there's different description variations. So it's almost like you've gone and got 4 ads in one, something along those lines, maybe more, because actually you've got different combinations. Would we go ahead and add in different ads? Often we wouldn't. The time when we would do it is when we want to use headlines in particular that don't necessarily work with each other. So I said we added in digital advertising agency, we couldn't just go in and add digital ads agency as another option, because if those two things appeared next to each other, that just wouldn't make any sense. So if we didn't want to have a digital advertising agency version, what we could do is we could go ahead and create a copy of this. And then if we go ahead and click paste, and then make sure you've got the right campaign selected and obviously the right ad group, because we want to create a duplicate of that ad into this ad group. Click done. And then we want to select if ad already exists in destination, create duplicate, because that's exactly what we're looking to do here. And then we can simply edit the duplicate and change a few, in this case, of the headline terms. So instead of having, for example, digital advertising agency, we could change that to digital ads agency, because again, that's going to be one of the keywords that people are searching for within this ad group. And that might mean that if we have space for it, I don't think we will, UK-based digital advertisers, maybe we change that round slightly to make that work. Obviously it needs to be under the 30 characters. That might be the only change we make to that second ad. Is that worth it? Probably not, which is why, as I say, we would often just go with the one. If I go ahead and just save this ad, we would go with the one ad, responsive search ad per ad group, because, and that's what this structure allows us to do, the super specific grouping of the keywords in the ad group allows us to get away with that. So to not help confuse, to show what we would normally do, I'm going to go ahead and remove this second ad so you can see the structure. Okay, so that is basically the structure that we would use. We'd have our campaign, we'd have as many ad groups as we need within that campaign, and then we'd usually only have the one responsive search ad with lots of different variation within each ad group. And then when it comes to creating ads in other ad groups, what I typically do is start by simply copying and then pasting into other ad groups. That's a good way, a quick and easy way to get started. So then we make sure we get the campaign selected, and let's say, for example, let's go with Google Advertising Agency, and we're going to copy the ad from the digital advertising agency ad group into the Google Advertising Agency ad group. But we're going to want to change some of the headlines, maybe some of the description stuff, and that's a big plus of this structure where we have lots of different ad groups, is you can get more specific with the copy in the ads, which leads to higher click-through rates, which also leads to higher conversion rates. Okay, so now back to the ad group level. Let's go ahead and select digital advertising agency, and let's go to ads. So we've got two ads in here. Obviously, the first one is just the one that was created when we set up the ad group in the first place. So we can just go ahead. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to pause that instead of, we would obviously remove that and not use it at all, but you can just ignore this for now. That does not apply. And then we're going to go ahead and edit the ad that we just copied and pasted from the other ad group in here. And we're going to change some of the various elements. So obviously the first one here being digital advertising agency, we want to get more specific. So instead of digital advertising agency, we're going to go with Google Advertising Agency. UK-based digital ads team, we're going to change that to UK-based Google Ads team. These other ones kind of apply throughout. They're going to apply to Google Ads, digital ads, Facebook ads, the various different ad groups. So there's going to be quite a lot of overlap, but being able to change some of the more specific ones is really, really important. Specialist media buyers, could we fit in specialist Google media buyers? Maybe doesn't fit. Maybe specialist Google ads buyers. You can have a play around with this. As I said, check out that video on headlines and all that sort of stuff. Then we get down into the description. Exactly the same thing applies. How can we add in the Google ads element into some of these things here? So UK, specialist UK based, instead of just advertising team, like we went with a more specific one before, let's go with Google Ads team. Ad creative included for all our clients. Now, if our Google Ads clients are mainly on the search network, where ad creative being images, videos, obviously depending on platform, like Facebook, for example, that's going to be more of a thing. Maybe we choose to take out that description because it's just not as important for Google Ads, and we look to add something in. See why hundreds of clients choose us every year. We could add in for Google Ads and make this more specific. Then we go down to the site link extensions, call out extensions, etc. Now, we didn't actually add these in. Remember, we were talking about adding these in at the campaign level, but you could add in some more specific ones at the end. You could have your overall campaign level ones that apply to all the ad groups, and then you could have more specific ad group level ones for certain ones, like a Google Advertising Agency ad group. So if we go ahead and add in a new site link extension, we could have something like Google Ads case studies, if that's something that we had on our website. Google Ads case studies, it shows previous work we've done for our clients. You could have, if the page on your website to do with Google Ads were broken out into different sections, you could add those in as other site links. Obviously, you need to pop in the final URL I'm just going to cancel that out. And then of course the same advice applies to the call ad extensions. We can use the campaign level ones, and there will be some that apply campaign wide, and that's fantastic and that's great. That saves you some time. But we could also add in some more specific to Google Ads, that very term in here. So I don't know, Google Ads experts. I'm not sort of thinking through all these options. I normally take more time, but because I'm recording a video, I'm sure you appreciate that, you know, I need to get through it and just add things in. So Google Ads experts, and you could add in various other options. Okay, same thing applies. And then if your business is big enough and you have different phone numbers associated with different departments, you could add in different phone numbers, and many do, to be fair. That's not super rare. Okay, then we scroll down, we can click Save Ad, and that one is now ready. So we haven't changed everything, but we've changed some of the elements to make it more congruent with the keywords that we're using, and then we would go through and do that process for all the ad groups. So for the ones we created and also the ones we talked about that we would have created, and that may mean that you've got, say, 12 different ad groups, 15 different ad groups. Each one's going to have one, maybe two, we've already discussed that, responsive search ad, but each one of those responsive search ads is going to have 6, 8 headlines, something like that, 3 or 4 descriptions, a number of different site link, call ad extension options, maybe a call, as in your phone number, a call extension as well. And that's really the structure that we're going for. And there's one final thing I want to mention about structure, and that is landing pages. Now, is it okay if you use the same landing page for all your ad groups? We've created 4, I said in real life we'd create maybe 12. Yes, it's not the end of the world if you use the same landing page, provided of course these services aren't related and you have Facebook ads and Google ads and just digital advertising in general talked about on the one landing page. But in an ideal world, you would get as specific as possible with the landing page. So we would send our Google Ads ad groups, people searching for the keywords within that and clicking on those ads, to a specific Google Ads page. And we would send the Facebook Ads ad groups, people searching for those keywords and stuff, to a Facebook Ads page. And that might mean that out of those 12 ad groups, we have, say, 3 or 4 different landing pages. That would be sort of better than the one landing page. But the absolute ideal is to go one step further and have an individual landing page per ad group. And that might mean that you have almost identical pages. Now, you need to make sure that not all of these are navigable from like the homepage on your website, because that's going to get pretty confusing, and you're going to be like, hang on, there's a digital advertising agency page and a digital marketing agency page, and what's going on? But people do this with Google Ads all the time, right? You just have a landing page that only people that are being sent from a Google ad to that landing page access there, and they can access the rest of the website, but people can't get from the rest of the website to that. That's absolutely fine to do. But for example, our digital marketing agency page might be very similar to our digital advertising agency page. It's just that we might have slightly different language on that page. Instead of using the word advertising, we're using the word marketing, etc., etc. We might change the copy a little bit. And that is, it might seem pernickety and unnecessary, a waste of time and effort, but it can make a difference to your results. So I would actually recommend doing that if you are able to, if you have the time. Obviously, there are scenarios where that's more important than others. So using our example, using a different page for digital advertising agency and Google advertising agency is very important, because digital advertising agency could be looking for Google ads or Facebook ads or something else, right? Whereas with Google, we know they're looking for Google, we're going to send them straight there. Likewise, with our Facebook advertising agency pages, we need to send them straight to a Facebook advertising agency page. But here we've got Google AdWords agency, Google advertising agency as separate ad groups. They could both go to the same page. That would be fine if they went to the same page. It would be amazing if they didn't, if it was more specific. You know, on the Google AdWords agency page, you might have a headline that says Google AdWords agency services, and then you've got things like, did you know Google AdWords is actually called Google Ads, and we can keep you up to date and help you, and something more specific for that, which would be really good. That is worth doing if you can put in the time and effort. Not everyone can, that's fine. But yeah, that would be the ideal structure. So before I tell you about something else that you need to check out, to quickly summarize, you've got your campaign, you've got as many ad groups within that as you need, really tight keyword groupings, no more than around 6 keywords per ad group, and they all need to be very closely related to the main core theme of the ad group. Usually 1, sometimes 2 responsive search ads in each one of those ad groups, and then in an ideal world, a landing page per ad group, but certainly a landing page per offering, per service, per product, etc., to get the best possible results. That's how I would recommend you structure things, and you can see significant improvements in results just by structuring them that way. If you've had previous setups that are all a bit of a mess, all over the place, it can make more of a difference than you think. So in this video, I demonstrated adding in some keywords into various ad groups, but it's really important that you know how to find keywords that are likely to deliver great results for your business. I show you exactly how to do that in this video here. I cover a number of different keyword strategies to find those keywords to be able to put into those ad groups. Really important you know how to do that. Go ahead and check it out.